Welcome to War Games on Toast, all of you lovely people, and welcome back to another TTS battle report. This time it is the Kharadon Overlords versus the Bone Splitters. This is another TTS League battle report, and if you want to get involved in the next league, then hit up the link in the description below and that'll take you to the Warcry Discord where you can get involved, learn TTS and get ready for the November League. But without further ado, let's get onto those lists. And for the Kharadon Overlords, we have the Cannons and Cutters list. In the Dagger, we have a Lordling and 3 Arcanauts with Cutters. In our Shield, we have 4 Arcanauts with Cutters. And finally, in our Hammer, we have a Company Captain and 4 Grundstock Thunderers with Aether Cannons. And the Company Captain has a +1 Toughness Blessing to make him a little bit harder to kill. This list is absolutely brutal. With the Grundstock Thunderers, that is a total of 8 to 16 Strength 5, 5-10 damage shots a turn. They are absolutely brutal and can kill just about anything. And on top of that, we have 7 Arcanauts filling out this list into a giant cluster of murderous horde death. If you wanted to take the Kharadon Overlords to the obvious extreme with ranged, then this probably is the best you could do. And the list itself comes courtesy of my mate in the Discord, Maliak, who is an excellent Warcry player but couldn't get into this game, so I am subbing for him in this league battle. Over onto the Bone Splitters, we have the Big Shafts list, manned by Justin from Tabletop and Beyond. In his Dagger, he has a Savage Orc Moorboy Boss and a Savage Big Stabber. In his Shield, he has 2 Savage Orc Moorboys and a Savage Big Stabber. And finally, in his Hammer, he has a Savage Big Boss and a Savage Auric Bone Totem Bearer. This list is all about hitting very hard, but it is very small. At only 7 models, I almost double his model count, but his damage up close is brutal. If he can get in, this game is all over. And here is the board. We have a giant temple structure in the middle that makes it very difficult for any ranged units to fire, but it also provides a difficult workaround to get to anyone who wants to get into close combat from the bottom right going to the top left there. Both shield deployments also have a tree platform and bridge that allows them to navigate the upper part of this battlefield, making it fairly easy for ranged units to perch themselves up there and stay relatively safe. And in turn 2, our daggers come in behind our opponent's hammers, making things like my Thunderer deployment incredibly risky simply because his guys are going to pin me in very early on. And on top of that, my dagger being very weak means I don't have much of a deployment on round 2 that can do much of anything. Now, our mission for this game is called the Most Dangerous Game. At the start of each battle round, starting with the player who has initiative, each player picks 1 enemy fighter to be hunted. That fighter remains hunted until the end of the game, even if they are taken down. Hunted fighters within 3 inches of the battlefield edge at the end of a battle round are then taken down. Whenever a fighter takes down another fighter, that fighter's controller scores 1 victory point. Players score an additional 1 victory point if that fighter was hunted. If the hunted fighter was a leader, they score an additional 2 victory points instead. If the hunted fighter had the most wounds or the tied for the most wounds, then they score an additional 3 victory points instead. This mission is all about hunting the right targets at the right time, and since my Kharadon Overlords have such low wound counts, this actually gives me a massive advantage on point scoring potential, as nearly everything I kill in Justin's list has 25 wounds. They are nearly all tied for the most victory points, so hunting and killing just about anything should score me the maximum of 4 victory points per kill, and then anything else that dies outside of being hunted will just score me the 1. Now of course, Justin's list is far more killy in close combat, so if he does close that distance, things could take a nosedive for me. But if I can keep my range and lay on that range pressure whilst also swarming some of his exposed units with my sheer number of Arcanauts, then I could maybe score reliable points every turn and simply overwhelm him. This game is destined to be absolutely awesome, so let's dive into those deployments and see what happens. Justin deploys first and places his big stabber and 2 Savage Orc Moorboys under this tree in the perfect position, trying to charge into my hammer as quickly as possible. Of course, my hammer contains all of my Grundstock Thunderers, so if these guys can get in, then this is really bad for me, and of course, excellent for him. Remember as well that his dagger comes on turn 2 behind my hammer, so this is very much a hammer and anvil situation coming on. I then deploy my Arcanauts up on this tree. These guys all have 8-inch range pistols and have 12 wounds. They're pretty hard to kill in the grand scheme for their points, and that's a lot of shooting that is very hard to fight because they're on elevated platforms. It'll take a lot of movement for his guys to get onto that platform and then start contesting their space. I then deploy my Grundstock Thunderers. I mark out the exact location where I need to be to not be within charge and attack range of any of his guys. So all of my Thunderers are basically on the very, very edge of where his guys can attack them this turn. This should hopefully discourage him from trying to get towards them, and this should keep them alive an extra turn. It does mean I am right on the edge of the round 2 dagger deployment, but it's a sacrifice that has to be made. And here is some pre-game musings. Of course, I know the result of the game, but I think I deployed pretty darn well here. None of his guys can get into combat, and I have elevated positions on 4 pistols. So if he was to try to engage, I can just start firing down and dealing chip damage. Savage Orc boys are very good in combat, but they are very squishy. They only have toughness 3, so those piddly pistols will actually start to do some pretty serious damage if left unattended for too long. And of course, those Grundstock Thunderers, if they get Fight for Profit up and they take a single step forward, they could start just deleting units left, right and centre. That 5-10 damage shot doubled with their Fight for Profit is truly outstanding, and nothing in this list can really stand up to that. On average, if I was to stay still and fire twice, I could kill just about anything with 1 Thunderer. So this is a seriously threatening position, and turn 1 is going to be pretty darn cool. And for initiative, I rolled 2 doubles and 2 singles, and my opponent also rolled 2 doubles and 2 singles, so we roll off a priority, and I get a 5, and my opponent comes in and gets a 2, which means I have initiative and I am spending first. With my dice here, I really want to get Fight for Profit up, and that is a triple. This will allow my Thunderers to get an extra shot per action, and this will make them far more dangerous, so I'm going to turn this into a 3-3 and leave it at that. My opponent decides to make another double and goes for a 2-2, so there's a few more options when it comes to using Onslaught, Rush and Charge. For hunted targets, I target his big stabber under that tree, and he decides to target my Arcanaut up this tree. So with my initiative, I activate Fight for Profit to give all my Thunderers that +1 attack, provided they are within 3 inches of that company captain, and I've handily put this little aura on so you can see exactly where that is, and then he decides to move up to get into a better position. I then realise that due to this terrain, I really can't get anywhere safe. I most certainly cannot get my company captain safely out of the turn 2 death zone. So I make the choice here to kind of place him safe away from his guys over in his shield there, but in a place that's very tempting for him to just deploy onto that company captain and maybe get stuck there. I have a very sneaky plan for that. Then we go over here, and this big stabber climbs this temple and gets ready to threaten my dudes. And using the 3D movement tool, he is just in range. He is 9.8 inches away, I believe, from this Thunderer, which means I can just fire up there and do some devastating damage by standing still and firing twice. Remember, Fight for Profit is up, so that is 4 shots overall. The first lot of shots does 10 damage with 2 hits, which is a staggering amount of damage. And the second amount does 15, which is enough to kill the big stabber and nets me 4 points. He then moved his Moorboy over there to the north, and then I activate this Grundstock and move him into position to be in range to get a sneaky shot off on this Moorboy over here. With Fight for Profit, I fire twice and deal 5 damage, which is nothing to scoff at. His Savage Moorboy then bravely runs away to meet up with his uninjured friend. I then activate another Grundstock Thunderer, who just moves up twice and gets into a better position for next turn. He's definitely in range for turn 2. He then activates his big stabber, who very cautiously moves up. He wants to get as close to this temple as possible, so on turn 2 he can climb up there and then charge that company of Arcanauts. This does mean he can't do anything this turn, but he does put himself into a very strong position for turn 2. I don't want this guy getting into my lines, and if he does, he is very, very dangerous. I then move this Arcanaut up this bridge a bit to get into range to fire his pistol at that stabber and hoping to do some chip damage. 2 shots hitting on 4s, and I land absolutely nothing, which is about time considering how deadly my other shooting has been. His Moorboy boss moves into a position to sort of threaten my incoming dagger. He is more than capable of killing a few guys by himself. He's very, very strong. And then I spend the rest of my turn just moving up all of these Arcanauts across this bridge. This guy here takes a shot because he's in range. And he fires twice on 4s and also deals nothing. I then move my 3rd Arcanaut across the bridge, and he is just in range to fire as well. So he fires, hitting on 4s, and lands a whopping 1 damage, before moving on to my final Arcanaut, who moves across the bridge and is not in range. So he can't do anything this turn, but he's getting ready for next turn. I then use Rush on this Grundstock Thunderer to get him moving a bit faster than usual and to get him into position to threaten those 2 Moorboys. I had a pretty good turn 1, getting 4 points, but turn 2 is looking pretty cagey because he has guys coming in behind those Thunderers and doing a lot of damage potentially. On to battle round 2, I roll a double, a triple and a single, and Justin rolls a double and 4 singles and makes another double. I then spend my wild dice to make a second triple to see what I can do with that. His reinforcements come onto the board and he places his Totem Bearer and his Savage Orc Big Boss into combat with my company captain and an Arcanaut. This is a great position for him to be in, but also I have some sneaky tricks up my sleeve that might just turn the tide in my favour. My deployment is far less exciting as I just castle up in this corner. I want to stay as far away from his orcs as humanly possible. These Arcanauts are fairly tough, but they are only 50-point models and they will go down pretty easily to any concentrated attack, and all these orcs are more than capable of taking these guys out, and I don't want to concede points. So putting him in this corner means that he only has 1 orc who can really do anything, and that's his Moorboy boss. And that's okay with me. If he does engage, I'm hoping just to surround him and then beat him to death with 1,000 tiny knife cuts. But yeah, if I can get out of this corner or stay in this corner whilst his other guys are preoccupied, this might be okay. But I was a little bit concerned here that this could all go very, very wrong and he would start to pin me in and kill my guys. For hunted targets, I pick his Savage Boy Big Boss and he picks my company captain. He then uses charge and moves his stabber onto this platform and then moves into combat. This guy is pretty darn dangerous and he targets the second in row here and deals 9 damage. He's alive, but only barely. I then fire my Grundstock and I deal 10 damage. That's all he can do. That was a double shot. He then charges in his Moorboy boss to try and pin these guys in and start hacking them apart. He then swings in with 4 attacks, hitting on 3s and deals a whopping 9 damage, which isn't quite enough to land a kill. I then activate my Grundstock, who takes a shot at his final Moorboy. I shoot and I deal 10 damage, leaving him on only 5 wounds. His big boss then attacks my Grundstock over here and kills him outright. So he was not long for this world and he gets cleaved in twain. He then targets my company champion and then swings as well. And he lands a whopping 15 damage, which leaves him on 1 HP. He's alive, but only barely. My company captain then disengages 3 inches and then makes a runner. He does not want to be anywhere near those guys. And he wants to stay more than 3 inches away from that board edge so he doesn't instantly die at the end of the turn. The Moorboy with totem pole thing comes up. Now here's a 3-inch range, which caught me off guard, and he just goes in and targets my company captain with 3 attacks hitting on 4s. He kills him with 6 damage. He's out now, and that scores Justin a whopping 3 points for the kill. I then move my Grundstock up 3 inches and then take a shot at this Moorboy, trying to finish off his last guy. 1 shot, hit on a 3, that's 5 damage, and that kills the final Moorboy. It's time to kill this big stabber with knives and pistols. So I've got a lot of guys. I could do some serious damage here, given enough time. With 6 attacks, hitting on 4s, I then opt to use Onslaught, in fact, here, to give me an extra attack. That's 8 attacks since I'm double attacking here, because he can't counter, it makes no difference. And we roll off, and I deal a rather substantial 6 damage, which puts quite a big dent in that big stabber. I then start firing pistols from behind, so the wounded Arcanaut fires 4 shots, and lands a whopping 5. That's 12 damage overall this guy's taken. He's only got 13 wounds left. I fire my last pistol that's in range, and I land another 3 damage. So this guy is below half wounds. This is pretty darn good for me. And then this guy wasn't in range to fire, so I decided to jump him down to maybe try to help out the Arcanauts down here with that boss. It's time to pressure this boss, so I move my Arcanaut around here. It's 2 inches and then a little 1-inch shimmy to get into range, and then he gets ready to attack with his daggers. These guys aren't great in combat, but you know, the more attacks I can get off, the better here. So 3 attacks, and he lands 1 damage. Now, Lordlings aren't much better than Arcanauts in combat, but he's still an extra bit of damage to throw in. So he moves around here and very sneakily fits into this little gap that I've left to get off his 3 attacks. He's a little bit stronger, doing a 2-4 damage as opposed to 1-3, but he's only got 3 attacks and he is only strength 3, so the odds of him making a massive difference in combat are fairly slim, but we'll see what happens here. 3 attacks, hitting on 5s, and we do land 4 damage with a crit there. I then activate this Arcanaut down here, who uses Onslaught for +1 attack. That's 8 attacks, hitting on 5s. He swings in, and he lands a monstrous 6 damage. One last Arcanaut swings in, he attacks, he swings, and he lands 2. Not a bad roll overall. Now, this is where things get interesting, because the big boss in the top left there was my hunted target, and he ended the turn within 3 inches of that board edge. He automatically dies, netting me 3 points. This was huge, and part of the reason why I was okay leaving my company champion in that deployment zone. It really encouraged him to not move and to be distracted and attack twice. It worked out, but I did of course lose my company champion. So in the end we both did score 3 points off that exchange, but it was far easier to kill his big boss that way than it would have been dancing around and trying to fire bullets at him. So I think that trade was well worth the sacrifice. Everywhere else, this game is going very well for the Kharadon Overlords. His Moorboy boss in the bottom right is nearly dead. That big stabber is half dead. Ensure his totem bearer is at full wounds, but he is staring down the barrels of 3 Grundstock Thunderers. This game looks to be very much in the Kharadon Overlords' favour, and frankly I don't see many ways for Justin to pull this one back. On to battle round 3, I get 2 doubles and a single, and he gets a double and a triple and a single. So I go and then spend my dice and make myself a sneaky extra single, so I secure initiative, and he makes himself a double 5, so he has some more options in the game. I go first, and I hunt off his big stabber, and he hunts this Arcanaut. I activate this Grundstock, and I take 2 sneaky shots, hitting on 3s, and I deal 5 damage to his Totem Bearer. He then uses Onslaught and goes on a bit of a rampage here, looking to kill off as many of my guys as possible. I do use Counter, but it likely won't do much. He hits me for 9, which is quite substantial, but I do 3 damage back to him, which is very nice. He does kill my guy though. He then attacks again, and I use Counter again. So he gets his 5 attacks, hitting on 3s, he rolls, and he deals 9 damage, but again he takes 3 more damage, leaving his boss on 1 wound. I then use Onslaught to attack his big stabber with my dude, and that's 8 attacks hitting on 4s, because he's only toughness 3, I believe, so that's hitting on 4s, 4 attacks. So the first round of attacks go off, and I hit for crazy, I hit 8 damage, which was enough to kill his Savage Orc. And then I move up here, and of course that scores me another 4 points. His Morboy boss, his Morboy Totem Bearer uses Onslaught, and then because he's in range of most guys, because of his 3-inch range, he just clobbers this guy on the head and deals 4 damage. And then he goes for a second swing to see if he can finish off this wounded Grundstock Thunderer. With 10 damage, that is more than enough to kill him off, so he goes down and he scores himself another point, bringing the score to 7-13. I move this Grundstock over here to get a bead on his wounded Totem Bearer. With 1 shot, I hit on 3s, and I crit for 10 damage, which kills that guy and scores me another point. Now, I was a bit of a dick here, but this is League, so scoring as many points as possible is the name of the game. So I decided to skip the rest of my turn because that Morboy boss only had 1 wound left. It meant that on turn 4, there was a very high chance I could kill him, and he would then also be the hunted target, giving me 4 points instead of 1 if I were to kill him now. It's a bit of a dick move, but this is the kind of thing that you would do in a more competitive sense to try and score as many points as possible and try and squeeze as much blood from every stone possible. So quickly on to round 4, I had enough dice for a double. I also went first. I swing with my Lordling and I miss, but with a second lot of swings under my belt, I give it another go. And I land 8 more damage with 2 crits, which kills off his boss. So when all was said and done, the Kharadon Overlords come in with a crushing victory, 18 points to 7. This game was absolutely brutal, and this is entirely down to the fact that this list is just very, very strong. 13 models, 4 of which are Grundstock Thunderers with Aether Cannons, even without Fight for Profit. 1 shot, strength 5, 5-10 damage is incredible. If you spike at any point and get that crit, you do so much damage. The fact that I could very easily in 1 turn kill anything on his list meant that he was in such a bad spot no matter where he went. I had 10-inch range, I could move, I could fire, and I was rolling pretty darn hot, let's be honest here. Those Thunderers did amazing work. But honestly, potentially the man of the match, the men of the match, the dwarfs of the match, are those Arcanauts. Having 7 Arcanauts in this list as the chaffy backbone, they were able to just cut apart everything. They only killed 2 guys, surely, but that was 8 points overall, and they only conceded, I believe, 2 or 3 points the whole game and scored that 8 points in return. So that was a huge, huge win for those Arcanauts. And yeah, Justin played very, very well here, but the oppressive nature of a all-ranged warband, having 7 pistols, 8 pistols, and 4 ether cannons is horrible to go against, especially when your list is a very small, elite, lightly armoured Savage Auric warband. Overall though, this game was a hoot to play, and whilst I did feel rather dirty by the end of it, it was still a lot of fun. But that is the end of this video and this game. So if you liked what you saw here, please consider leaving a like, commenting and subscribing. It lets me know that you want to see more TTS battle reports, and if you want to get involved in the Tabletop Simulator Warcry League, then again you can find the link to that down below in the description. Until next time, I'll catch you in the next video. Ta-ra!